I used to promise my employees, or rather our employees, that they will get something in return if they delivered value. Because why countries in the West and also the Far East have succeeded in creating big companies and big economies is because they always try to ask themselves, if I do this, what is in it for me? You have to ask yourself, okay, I do this for the company, what do I get? What is in it for me? So I used to promise our employees what is in it for them. Through that promise, you inspire people to deliver. Because leadership means what is rewarding gets done. What is rewarding gets done. Management is what is rewarded gets done. Those are two different things. So I used to tell my employees, okay, if you do this, we'll give you this. But I'm sad to say that I have not been able to keep that promise. I am not really sure how many of your companies, 70 companies are represented here, how many companies are in a position to deliver that value to you today. I am sure not many companies are in a position to deliver that value to you today. Why? Because the external environment, when I say external, the environment outside your company we are operating in is not conducive to growth of your business. That environment is not conducive to the growth of private enterprise. So what have we missed? What we have missed in my opinion is that we have not fully practiced TPM. We confined ourselves, we restricted ourselves to look at only what is within our reach. That is where we failed. When you practice TPM, when you practice lean management, what do? You take it to your people. You take it to the people below you, people who report to you, your supervisors, your operatives. You hold their hands, you teach them, you get them to train themselves. You help them train themselves, and then you help them practice. As a team, you work with them, you give leadership. So in doing that, you created an environment inside your company to deliver value. But what we fail to understand is what we are trying to save account only for about 20% of our cost base. 80% of the cost base is coming from the external environment. And we can't manage that. By not being able to manage that 80%, that 20%, whatever the saving we are going to achieve or we are trying to achieve through managing that 20% is not delivering value. So, like we tried to guide our own employees, we did not guide the society. We did not guide the society. We did not teach the society as professionals, as TPM practitioners, as lean management practitioners. Ilak said he has 60,000 people in his program. We have not taken this important message to the society, that there is a need to manage cost, not only inside your company, but outside your company. When you practice TPM and lean management, you try to unearth another organization in your own organization. That is how I saw TPM. In your own factories, you try to unearth the more efficient factory that is inside your factory. Yes, you succeeded in unearthing that small factory or the more efficient factory in your factory. But you forgot that there is a factory outside your factory. That is overpowering. What is that factory? This factory called the government. That is also a factory. As you manufacture products and services, this outside factory also manufactures products and services. As much as you have machinery in your organization, this factory called the government, they also have machinery. What is that machinery? The machinery: defense, education, health, transportation, infrastructure, water, gas, electricity. That is the government machinery. Then it also has processes, systems, procedures, administrative regulations, finance regulations, other government circulars, methods. So it's a factory. But we never bothered to understand whether we can make a contribution to make that big factory more efficient. We only saw our interest inside our factories. We never took that lesson to the society to make them understand that there is this big factory and that factory is inefficient, that factory is bleeding, and we need to do something about it. That we failed to do. So, your responsibility as IC, as a professional, as a TPM practitioner, as a lean management practitioner, is to take that message to the society. If you don't take that message to the society, this factory, big factory, will never allow your factory to succeed. This big factory will not create the right environment for your own factory to succeed. That is why today most of our companies are struggling. It is not because you did not do your job inside your factory, but it is because you did not do your job in this big factory. So that is something we need to understand. Now, in taking that message, in creating that awareness, what we have to understand is accountability is the key. You have to create a society inside your factory, inside your own factory, and also inside this big factory. That accountability has to be demonstrated by everybody. Because we know anything that can be measured can be controlled. Anything that can be measured can be controlled. So we need to control that. If you just let that loose, there will not be any control in that factory. So we have to make an effort to exercise some control. In exercising that control, only you can add value. The same way you add value in your organization, in your own factory, this big factory also has to create value. If this big factory does not create value, then our companies will not be able to create value. Now, if you don't deliver that value, what will happen is you will not be able to realize your life purpose, because all of you have purpose, all of you have aspirations, all of you have stories to tell. But we have to understand whether we are in a position to tell people a good story of our life, whether we can achieve the real purpose of our life, and whether we can realize our aspirations. When I say realizing aspirations, now what we see is that lot of people, lot of young professionals are trying to leave this country. Why? Why? Because our professionals, young professionals like you all, don't see opportunities to create value. Opportunities to create value for you, create value for your children and maybe even grandchildren. That's how you are trying to live. But why are we trying to live? Because we have not understood what we are supposed to do. Recently, I was talking to a foreign friend of mine, and I was telling him the problems we have in the country, problems we have been having, and the problems we have, how we have got here. And he asked me, so what do the educated people in your country do? So I was taken aback. I was trying to find an answer. If you are saying your country has so much problems for so many years, and if people are desperate, people are trying to leave the country, what have the educated people in the country done? So I said, perhaps nothing. Perhaps nothing. Then he said, that's sad. Because we spend over 200 billion rupees every year on education in this country. But still, we send a whole lot of young girls, young mothers, young women as housemaids. As much as you set targets in your factory to your employees to deliver value, have we set a target? At least in the education system in this country, that we need to reduce at least the number of females going as housemaids if the education is succeeding. At least to reduce the number of people who are going as laborers, maybe kitchen helpers, plumbers. No. We haven't set a target. No targets. And when the country is asking you to set targets, monitor whether those targets are being delivered, what did we do? We looked the other way. That is what we did. So educated people have a big responsibility to fix not only your factory, but also this factory called the government. If you don't fix it, however much you struggle, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, you will not achieve desired results. Recently, at a gathering, I told our partners, our business partners, if we put in, I have run this group, I am running for 25 years. If I put in this effort, if I applied my mind the way I applied to improve this business, in any other country, these companies would have been 25 times bigger. The way you are applying your mind, the way you are struggling to improve your factories, if you apply in another country, I am sure your companies would be 25, 30 times bigger today. But since we are not going out, trying to create this awareness, trying to create this knowledge, we are unable to grow these companies to the extent we need. So, that is something we need to understand. If we don't understand this, we fail. Because Tilak said, knowledge only is not enough, you have to apply. What I want to tell you is, by saying, I love this country, it is not enough. How do you demonstrate that love? Loyalty alone is not enough. How do you demonstrate that loyalty? Through action. We should not limit our feelings to words. We should translate that feeling to action. Now, you saw our economy in the last quarter contracted 11.8%. Last week it was reported our economy contracted 11.8%. When India, our closest neighbor, is growing 7%. So what is the net impact? 18% gap. 18% gap. Why we have not been able to achieve that? Why we have not been able to achieve that? Because as a country also, we have not understood what we should be doing and what we should not be doing. I'll give you one example. Say, there are a lot of companies you represent that are exporting companies. Now in the recent budget, government made all companies pay 30% tax. Whether you are an exporter or a manufacturer or a trader. Now everybody is paying 30% tax. In a way it is good because if you make money, you pay. If you don't make money, you don't pay. But in coming up with these policies even, we haven't even looked at the regional business environment. For example, if you go to Singapore, now Singapore corporate tax rate is 17%. Now, I saw a recent article that our companies, our private sector exporting companies are blamed for not bringing money here. So, before we blame the companies, we need to understand why the companies are not bringing money if they are not bringing money. Now, when you have a competitor charging 17% tax, and if you are charging 30% tax, what will the companies do? Because today, the business environment, global business environment is very dynamic. It's very vibrant. Businesses go everywhere. Money flows everywhere at the click of a button. Millions of dollars, billions of dollars move countries. So, if we are charging 30% taxes, if Singapore is charging 17%, what the companies will do is to set up operations in Singapore, where part of, even if they make part of this money in Singapore, you pay 17% tax. So why pay 30% tax? So that is how the companies think. That is how the businesses think. And that is how businesses grow. So we need as much as when we set policies in our companies, we try to understand our competition. As a country, as a big business, we need to understand our competition and make policies to meet that competition. If we don't do that, we cannot grow. Now, so when I told my friend that our educated people, in my opinion, haven't done anything much, yes, we are discussing the problem, I also told him, perhaps it is through fear that we don't do anything. Maybe we fear the outcome. If we talk about it, what will be the outcome? But what we need to understand is, education should allow you to rid that fear. If the education is not allowing you, if education is not making you live without fear, then that education is useless. Fear should not be allowed to override your better judgment. Fear should not be allowed to override the purpose for which you have acquired education. So, I don't wish to speak at length, but a few concluding remarks. We need to understand that the problems we are facing, are they big problems? You all are in the private sector. You all know how your companies are running. Your companies maybe having subsidiaries, overseas operations, many departments. So when you consider all that, do you think our country's problems are big problems? That these problems are insurmountable, difficult to solve? See, Sri Lankan economy is a 50 to $55 billion economy. As an economy, state of Qatar spent $250 billion to play soccer. They played soccer, spending $250 billion. And our total GDP is only about $50-60 billion. I don't think the country's problems are big problems. Only if, let me stress, you all put your head down. If you put your head down, our country's problems are not big problems. These problems, to me, look much simpler to solve. But as educated people, as professionals, you need to put what you have learned into practice, not only in your factory, but outside the factory. If you start practicing what you have learned outside this factory, in this outside factory, then we can make this factory work. If you don't do that, this factory will not work. We need to understand that this economy is run. What we need to understand is this economy is run not for the benefit of 22 million people. In my opinion, I hate to see this. I see this economy being run for the benefit of about 1 million people. In this country, minorities are not the Tamil-speaking people. Minorities are not the people who are practicing or following Hinduism. Minorities are not the people who follow Islam in this country. But minorities are the people comprising this 22 million population, you and I. And we need to make sure that we act as the majority. 22 million people act as the majority. Because about 1 million people, why million people? Why I call them million people? Because there are about 9,000 elected representatives in this country. If you put, say, 100 people depending on this 9,000 to 10,000 people, it's 1 million people. So we need to understand that we have to create this economy, we have to run this economy, we have to run this big business for the benefit of this 22 million people. And only you can do that. If you don't do that, the TPM, lean management you have learned, the certificates you are receiving will be a waste. Tilak's efforts will be a waste. So you have to make a contribution to put this country on the right path, so that you stand on the right side of the history of this country. And you create a country for you, for your children, and your grandchildren. Thank you.